Welcome back again. Let's start. O-Level Chemistry, Paper 1, Multiple Choice Questions of May, June 2025, Variance 12. Let's see what we have in this paper. Oh, at temperature X, the volume of sample of hexane and pentane are not affected by changing the pressure from 1 atm to 2 atmosphere. Okay. So from this statement only, we conclude that both pentane and hexane are not gases because gases exerts pressure and they are easily compressible. So examiner is saying not affected, which means hexane and pentane both are not gases. Okay. At temperature X, pentane molecules are free to move. When we say free to move, then it means either it is a liquid or it is a gas. At temperature X, hexane molecules are in fixed position. When they are in fixed position, that indicates they are solid. So one thing is for sure that hexane is solid at this particular temperature, whereas pentane could be liquid or gas. Since we rule out the gas because there is no effect of pressure on that, which means pentane is going to be the liquid. So pentane is going to be the liquid and hexane is going to be the solid. On the basis of that, C is going to be the right answer. Okay, I hope it makes sense to you. Let's move on to the question number 2. A gas is produced by a chemical reaction at one side of the laboratory. After a few minutes, the gas is detected at the other side of the laboratory. So when a gas travels from one side of the laboratory to another side of the laboratory, then it means diffusion is going to be the process behind this phenomena. So which process explains why gas is detected? Obviously diffusion, because in diffusion, there is a movement of molecule takes place from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. Let's move on to question number 3. Which statement is correct? All compounds are ionic. That's not necessary because some compounds are covalent also. Okay. So this statement is incorrect. All compounds conduct electricity when molten. Silicon dioxide cannot conduct electricity in molten state. So not all compounds. Okay. Not all. Not all. Each atom of an element contains the same number of protons. Obviously, that's right. Element consists of many atoms and each atom has same number of protons and electrons. So C is going to be the right answer. Question number 4. Atom of elements Q form positive ions. Okay. From this statement, I conclude two things. First, element Q is metal. Because it forms positive ions, which is technically cation. And in cation, number of electrons are lower, number of protons always greater. Okay, that's what we have done in the class. Next, an ion of Q has 10 electrons and 14 neutrons. Now Q exists as cation, contain 10 electrons. So first shell contain 2 and second shell contain 8. Since examiner is looking for element Q, which means element Q contain more than 10 electrons. Q contain more than 10 electrons. Okay. If element Q contain more than 10 electrons, which means element Q contain more than 2 shells. If 10 electrons has 2 shells, if electrons is greater than 10, then it means it has more than 2 shells, right? So examiner in option A is saying an atom of Q has only 2 occupied electron shells. That's incorrect, because if we talk about atom of Q, then it means it contain more than 10 electrons, and therefore it will have more than 2 occupied electron shells, which is why A is incorrect. Q is non-metal. I've told you Q is metal because it forms positive ion. So option B is incorrect. The atomic number of Q is 10. The atomic number, since the number of electrons uh, in a positively charged ion is 10, which means atomic number has to be greater than 10. Okay. So option C is also incorrect. And therefore D is going to be the correct answer. अगर A गलत हो जाए, B गलत हो जाए, C गलत हो जाए, तो option D is going to be the correct one. Obviously, if it has 14 electrons, 14 neutrons, and obviously obviously a proton is going to be more than 10. So we don't know the exact number of that protons, but we get I guess it has to be greater than 24. Okay. So that's the only option left, which is why D is going to be the correct answer. Okay. I hope it makes sense to you. Question number 5. Which particle contain the greatest number of electrons? Atomic number of magnesium is 12, and so it has 10 electrons because of 2 plus charge. Atomic number of nitrogen is 7 because of 3 negative charge. Again, it has 10 electrons. Neon has an atomic number of 10. Neon is a noble gas. It will not exist as ion, and so it has 10 electron. Sulfur has an atomic number of 16. Because of 2 negative charge, it will have 18 electrons. So right answer is going to be D, because it has the greatest number of electrons. And obviously A, B, and C are incorrect because they will contain same number of electrons. Okay. The table shows data about the 2 isotopes in a sample of the element europium. What is the relative atomic mass of this sample of europium? Well, in variance 21, I have given you the whole formula so that we can find the AR of any element by using the isotopes and its relative abundance. I'm going to apply the same formula here. We need to find out the AR of europium. The mass of first isotope is 150.92 into abundance of first isotope, which is 47.81, plus mass of second isotope, which is 152.92, plus abundance of second isotope, which is 52.19, divided by total abundance. And the total abundance is going to be 100%. Let me check. How can we get 100%? We need to add these two values. So 52.19 plus 47.81. So it's going to be 100. Okay. Let's multiply these values divided by 100. Let me get the value. 150.19, 150.92 into 47.81 plus 152.92 into 52.81. 19. So it's basically 15196.38 divided by 100 and divided by 100. So it's going to be 151.96. 151.96. So I believe B is going to be the right answer. Okay. Which statement about magnesium oxide is correct? By the way, magnesium oxide is an ionic compound. Because magnesium is metal, oxygen is non-metal. So when metal and non-metal combine together, an ionic compound is formed. Okay. An ionic compound has high melting point. That's correct. And good electrical conductivity at RTP. At RTP, it is solid. And when it is solid, cannot conduct electricity, which is why it is a poor electrical conductor in solid state, which is why option A is incorrect. Okay. It is made up of magnesium anions. So magnesium always exists as cation, cannot be an anion. So answer B is incorrect. It is an ionic compound, correct, and has good electrical conductivity when molten. That's correct. So most probably answer is going to be C. Okay. Let's talk about the last part. Is strongly bonded because of the electrons share. In an ionic compound, there is a complete transfer and gain of electron. Sharing of electron takes place only in covalent bonds or covalent compounds. Since magnesium oxide is ionic, so there will be no sharing of electron takes place, and which is why D also incorrect option. Okay. Question number 8. Which statement about silicon 4 oxide is correct? By the way, silicon 4 oxide is solid at RTP and it has a giant molecular lattice. And obviously can't conduct electricity. Exhibit covalent bonding. Okay. So it conducts electricity? Never. It cannot conduct electricity either in solid or in molten state. It is a giant covalent structure. That might be the right answer. It is an alloy. Alloy is a mixture of metal. Whereas silicon dioxide has a formula of SiO2, which means it is a combination of two non-metals, which means it cannot be an alloy. It is ionically bonded. Again, wrong, because whenever we have molecular structure or molecular lattice, which means it exhibits covalent bonding, and therefore B is going to be the right answer. Which compound has the highest relative formula mass? Calcium carbonate has a formula of CaCO3. Calcium, and its MR is 100. Lithium sulfate is Li2SO4. Let me take out the MR of lithium sulfate. Lithium is 7 into 2 plus 32 plus 16 times 4. It's going to be 110. Okay. Magnesium chloride has a formula of MgCl2. So magnesium is 24 plus 35.5 times 2. So it's going to be 95. Potassium nitrate is KNO3. Let me get the MR. 39 plus 14 plus 16 times 3. It's going to be 101. So the highest relative formula mass is basically lithium sulfate, and therefore B is going to be the right answer. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Question number 10. 100 cm cube of ethene is completely combusted in 400 cm cube of oxygen. Okay, so at this point of question, let's make an equation first. Ethene has a formula of C2H4 reacting with oxygen, converting into carbon dioxide and water. So we have total 6 oxygen atom on the product side. To balance 6, I need to put 3 here. Okay. So technically it is 1 mole, it is 3 mole, and it is 2 mole. According to the question, the volume of gases measured at RTP. So at RTP, water is liquid, which is why we need to ignore water here in this calculation. Examiner is looking for the final volume of gas mixture at RTP. Okay. Uh, the volume of oxygen is given, which is 400 cm3. Let me solve properly. Volume of oxygen before reaction is 400 cm3. And how much volume of oxygen needs to be reacted? It's 300 cm3. How can we decide this? If it is 100 cm3, and since it has 1:3 का ratio, so अगर यहाँ से 100 cm3 react कर रहा है, तो obviously because of 3 mole 300 cm3 of oxygen has been reacted, and 2 moles of carbon dioxide are produced, which means 200 cm3 of carbon dioxide are formed. So volume of oxygen reacted according to molar ratio, 300 cm3. So volume of oxygen remain after reaction 400 initially, 300 reacted. So when we subtract these two values, the remaining amount of oxygen would be 100 cm3. Now examiner is looking for the total volume after the reaction. So after the reaction, the unreacted amount of oxygen is 100 cm3, and the amount of carbon dioxide produced is 200 cm3. So total amount is going to be 300 cm3. So 300 cm3 is the final volume measured at RTP. So C is going to be the right answer. Okay. Question number 11. The formula of hydrated sodium carbonate is this. First of all, take out the MR of this compound. Sodium carbonate has an MR of 106 plus 10 times 18 is 180, I believe. Yes. So when we add these two values plus 106, it's going to be 286. So 286 is the MR of sodium carbonate. What is the percentage composition by mass of oxygen? Oh my goodness, by mass of oxygen. So AR of oxygen is basically 16. How many atoms of oxygen in this formula? We have 3 oxygen atom here and we have 10 oxygen atom here. So 10 plus 3, 13. So into 13 oxygen atom divided by MR, which is 286, in order to get the percentage into 100. So let me check. 16 times 13 divided by answer into 100. It's going to be 72.72%. So right answer, I believe, is going to be D. Okay. So this is the relative atomic mass of oxygen. This is the number of oxygen atom present in this hydrated sodium carbonate divided by the MR of hydrated sodium carbonate into 100. Okay. I hope it makes sense to you. We have done this in class. Okay, next. The diagram shows the electrolysis of molten lead to bromide with inert electrodes. Okay. Which row identifies the particles carry charge along each arrow? Okay. Particles carries charge. This is the external circuit, and in external circuit, uh, electrons movement takes place. Okay. So one is going to be, my bad. Yeah. One is electron, two is electron, four is electron, and three is basically lead ions. Not lead ions. Technically, this is positively charged electrode. So bromide ions. Okay. Let's check. This must be the bromide ions because anion goes towards anode. And at anode, oxidation takes place. So bromide ions loses electron. So fourth is electron. One is electron. Two is also electron. So electron movement takes place from anode to cathode. That's what we have done in the class. So one is electron. Two is also electron. 3 is bromide ions, and 4th is electron. So right answer obviously is going to be C. Okay. Question number 13. What are the products formed at the two electrodes when aqueous copper 2 sulfate is electrolyzed using copper electrodes? Products formed using copper electrode, which means cathode and anode both are made up of copper. So at copper ions discharge at cathode in the form of copper. So product at cathode, copper metal. Okay, let's talk about anode. Copper is made up of anode. At anode, oxidation takes place. So it will turn to copper ions and electrons. So technically, copper ions are the product at anode. So right answer is going to be an A. Okay. Question number 14. Which statement about hydrogen oxygen fuel cell is correct? When hydrogen and oxygen are reacting together, converting into an steam. Okay, this is a steam. So it is a chemical reaction. That's correct. That has only one product. That's correct, because steam is the only product form. So I guess A is going to be the right answer. Next is, it works by burning hydrogen in air. No, because if you remember the functionality of the hydrogen oxygen cell, there was an electrolyte of NaOH in the fuel cell, and that NaOH undergoes chemical reactions so that hydrogen and oxygen gas are produced, and these gases then react together to give uh, steam, which means there must be the involvement of the electrolyte in the whole process. So it's not just the burning of hydrogen in air, uh, it's just the involvement of an electrolyte like NaOH in the process also, which is why B is incorrect. It requires a continuous input of electricity, electrical energy. Um, no, it requires no, it produces a continuous amount of electrical energy, not require, produces. Okay. Because hydrogen oxygen is an electrochemical cell in which chemical energy is converted into electrical energy. So technically electrical energy is produced. It doesn't require that thing. Okay. It is less efficient than a petrol engine. It is more efficient than the petrol engine. That's incorrect also. And so my guess was right. A is going to be the right answer. A reaction pathway diagram is shown, and that diagram shows the energy of product is greater than that of the reactant, which means it is an endothermic reaction. In endothermic reaction, the energy of product is greater and the energy of reactant is lower. In endothermic reaction, it is also called bond breaking process. So, which equation does the reaction pathway diagram shows? Now, which equation shows endothermic reaction? I mean to say, I need to check bond breaking process. See, when gaseous atoms combine together to give a covalent bond or to form a covalent bond, which means it is a bond forming process. I am so bond forming process, because when gaseous atoms are involved in order to make a covalent bond, which means it is a bond forming process, and bond process is always exothermic. Okay, which means option A is incorrect. Okay. In the last option D, gaseous atoms combine together to form a covalent bond. Okay, which means this reaction also involves bond forming process, which is why it is also exothermic. So option D is incorrect. Okay. Now this is steam and it is converting into liquid. So technically, is when steam is converted into liquid, this process is called condensation. And condensation is always exothermic, which means this is also incorrect. Now look, obviously B is going to be the correct answer because this involves the bond breaking process. Hydrogen molecule exhibit covalent bond, and this is hydrogen gaseous atom. So atom doesn't have any covalent bond, right? So it is a bond breaking process, which is why it is endothermic. So covalent bond is converted into gaseous atom. Okay. Which process is chemical change? Chemical change when new things are formed. Okay. So distillation is a separation technique in which you need to separate solid from liquid or liquid from solid, right? So it has a physical process based on the basis of boiling point, which is why option A is incorrect. Evaporation of water from aqueous sodium hydroxide. So evaporation again is a physical change, not correct. Melting of wax is a physical change, not correct. And obviously, rusting of iron is a redox reaction because iron is converted into iron 3 oxide, which is a rust, and therefore rusting of iron is a chemical change because new things are formed, new compound is formed. Iron, when exposed to air in the presence of moisture, will turn to rust. That's the rusting of iron, and therefore it is a chemical change. Melting, on the other hand, is a physical process. Evaporation is a physical process. Distillation is a physical change, which is why all three A, B, C are incorrect. I hope it makes sense to you. Let's move on to the next question. Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. Aqueous sodium thiosulfate. Aqueous sodium thiosulfate reacts with hydrochloric acid. I've given you the information regarding this experiment and rate of reaction. Sodium thiosulfate has a formula Na2S2O3. It is reacting with hydrochloric acid, which is HCl, converting into that's a different sort of reaction. Okay. Converting into sodium chloride, sulfur dioxide, sulfur, and obviously water. Okay. The rate of reaction increases if the concentration of both reactants is increased. And that's very, very powerful statement. Rate of reaction increases as concentration of reactant is increased. When concentration of reactant is increased, then it means collision frequency increases. Because number of reacting particles increases, which is why rate of reaction increases. Okay. Now, in the next part of the question, nitrogen gas reacts with hydrogen gas. That's called Haber's process. Rate of reaction increases if the pressure of the reaction vessel is increased. If the pressure increases, rate of reaction increases. Again, as we increase the pressure, number of reacting particles increases, collision frequency increases. Okay. And nitrogen and hydrogen react together in 1:3 ka ratio to give ammonia, and that's called Haber's process. So examiner is looking for what? Let's check. Which row correctly explain why the given change increase the rate of this reaction. So increasing the concentration of this increases the collision frequency between the reacting particles. So that's right. And that's also right. Activation energy increases or decreases uh, always depends on the catalyst, and there is no catalyst involved in such reactions. Okay. Um, in fact, this doesn't involve any sort of catalyst, but this involves. But since examiner is giving us the concentration and pressure effect, which is why we need to ignore the effect of catalyst, and so we cannot go for the activation energy criteria, and therefore option C and D are absolutely incorrect. Let's talk about when pressure is increased, it increases the collision frequency. Higher the collision frequency, higher the collision frequency. So right answer obviously is going to be an A, because in both the cases collision frequency increases. I mean to say successful collision in a unit time increases. Okay. Next, oh my goodness. But it's a repeated question, guys. We have done this question. In fact, you have done this question in my topical past paper booklet. Okay. Magnesium reacts with dilute sulfuric acid. Two experiments are carried out at 25 degrees Celsius, which means the temperature of both the experiment is same. Okay. 24 gram of powdered magnesium. 24 gram of powdered magnesium. Since magnesium has the same surface area and same mass, which means it has same number of moles also. So moles and surface area, moles and surface area of magnesium are same. Okay. Now the next is reacted with 100 cm cube of 1 mole per dm cube sulfuric acid. Okay. And here 50 cm cube of 2 mole per dm cube sulfuric acid. Technically, the moles of H2SO4 in experiment 1 is 0.1, and the moles of H2SO4 in experiment 2 is also 0.1 mole. So the number of moles of sulfuric acid in both the cases is same. Since the moles of magnesium is same, moles of sulfuric acid is same, so same amount of reactants has been used, which is why the same volume of hydrogen gas must be given off or must be collected in both the experiment. So that's the most powerful point, number one. So same amount of hydrogen is collected in both the experiment. Okay. Same amount of hydrogen is collected in both the experiment. The same amount of hydrogen is not collecting in C, which is wrong, not collecting in D, which is also wrong. Now competition exists between A and B because in both the options, the same amount of gas has been collected. Okay. C, experiment 2 has higher gradient, and higher gradient, and gradient is basically the rate of reaction. So higher gradient means higher rate of reaction. and higher rate of reaction will lead to more concentration. So has experiment 2 has a higher concentration, okay, while experiment 1 has a lower concentration. So experiment 2 has a higher concentration, which is why number of reacting particles increases, and so rate of reaction increases, which is why it has a higher gradient. So I believe A is going to be the right answer. Okay. Also in experiment 1, gradient is lower. Will lead to lower concentration and consequently lower rate of reaction. I hope it makes sense to you. So option B is also incorrect because this shows the lower gradient of experiment 2. Lower gradient of experiment 2 is incorrect. Okay, that's not possible because experiment 2 has a higher concentration of sulfuric acid than experiment 1. I hope it makes sense to you. Let's move on to the next question. Question number 19. Which row gives the catalyst for each of the two processes? That's easy. Contact process uh, uses vanadium 5 oxide, whereas Haber's process uses iron, and therefore C is going to be the correct answer. Okay. Question number 20. Oh my goodness. Um, that's the titration curve we have done in the class, if you remember. When I was explaining titration questions related to moles, we were discussing different titration curves in the class, all right? It's one of them. The diagram shows the change in pH as a strong alkali is added to weak acid. Okay. And since volume of alkali is given on the x-axis, which means this volume of alkali has to be in the burette and this weak acid has to be in the conical flask. ओके यही कहा था मैंने आपको कि एक्स एक्सिस रीड करो क्या गिवन है जो भी चीज एक्स एक्सिस पे गिवन होती है वो हमेशा ब्यूरेट के अंदर होती है ओके 40 cm cube of strong alkali is added to weak acid. Sample of the solution is tested separately with methyl orange and thymolphthalene. Which row is correct? Okay, we have two indicators, guys, here. The first one is methyl orange, and the second one is thymolphthalene. In acid, it shows red color, it shows colorless. In alkali, it shows yellow and it shows blue. Okay, so when you add strong alkali into the acid, obviously there will be a yellow color in the methyl orange and there will be a blue color in thymolphthalene, and obviously D is going to be the correct answer. Which row shows the equation for the dissociation of methanoic acid and of nitric acid? One thing for sure, according to my lecture, nitric acid is a strong acid. It ionizes fully and reverse and represented by single arrow. Okay, let's check where we can obviously this is reversible sign incorrect, this is reversible sign incorrect, so obviously B and C option incorrect. This is correct, this is also correct, so competition exists between A and D. Let's talk about methanoic acid. Methanoic acid has a formula of HCOOH. It is a weak acid, and weak acid ionizes partially in aqueous medium, which is why this partial ionization is represented by a double arrow. So it has to be like this. Okay. So this statement is incorrect. This statement is also incorrect. So from this, option A is also incorrect. And therefore D is going to be the right answer, because this is the right equation. It matches this one, right? दोनों same है. और ये equation और ये equation ये भी दोनों same है. Okay. So I believe D is going to be the right answer. Oh, my bad. Okay. Question number 22. Which statement about elements in periodic table is correct? Across the period, elements at the left hand side of the periodic table are more metallic, that's correct, than those at the right hand side, that's correct. And I believe A is going to be the right answer. But let's talk about option B. Down the group, elements at the top of the group lose electrons more readily, that's incorrect. Okay. Because when we talk about metals, so reactivity always increases down the group. So the elements which are found in the bottom of the group loses electron rapidly, whereas in the case of non-metal it is reversed. All right. So this statement is not applicable for all the groups. All right, which is why option B is incorrect. Elements in the same group of the periodic table have same number of completed shells of electrons. Same group have same number of completed shells of electrons. If elements are found in the same group of the periodic table, they will have same number of valence electrons, not the number of completed shells of electrons. For instance, lithium has 2 shells, sodium has 3 shells, potassium has 4 shells. Although all of them are found in the same group, but they have different number of shells. So that statement is not going to correct. Okay, not acceptable at all. So option C is also incorrect. Element in the same period have the same number of electrons. No. If elements are found in the same period, they will have the same number of shells. So same number of electrons are incorrect. It has to be same number of shells. And obviously it is also incorrect. And number of shells, no, number of electrons. In fact, valence electrons. Okay. Next, rubidium and cesium are both elements in group 1 of the periodic table. Which prediction comparing rubidium and cesium is correct? Cesium has a higher density and the greater reactivity. Down the group, reactivity increases. So that's correct. Density always equals to mass per unit volume. Since the AR of cesium increases, density also increases. So this is also correct, and most probably A is going to be the right answer. But let's talk about other options. Cesium has a higher density. That's true, because relative atomic mass of cesium down the group increases, so density increases. Rubidium has a greater reactivity. No, rubidium has a lower reactivity. Because down the group reactivity also increases. Rubidium has higher density and greater reactivity. No, not at all. Rubidium has lower reactivity and lesser density as compared to cesium. Rubidium has a higher density. Cesium has a greater reactivity. No, it has a lower density because its relative atomic mass is lower than cesium. So this is incorrect, but this statement is correct. So technically, one correct, one incorrect. So it is again incorrect. This is also incorrect, because the entire statement is not correct. This one is correct, but the later part of the statement is incorrect, which is why option B is incorrect. Okay. Question 24. 3 statements about halogens are listed. all halogens are non-metallic diatomic molecule. That's true. Chlorine displaces both bromine and iodine from aqueous solution from their salt. That's also true because the reactivity of chlorine is greater than the bromine and iodine. So the displacement reaction can take place. Halogen becomes more reactive on descending, group 7 of the periodic table, on descending, not on ascending. Down the group, reactivity of halogens decreases. But from bottom to top, that is in ascending order, the reactivity increases. So third statement is incorrect. 1 and 2 is correct. And since 1 and 2 statement is correct, which is why B is going to be the correct answer. Question 25. Which statement about neon is correct? It is unreactive. That's true. It has a strong intermolecular forces. That's incorrect because it has a weak intermolecular forces. Intermolecular forces between noble gases are always weak. So second statement is incorrect. First is correct. It has full outer shell electrons. Yes, its octet is full. So third statement is also right, and therefore B is going to be the right answer. Question number 26. Substance X has the following properties: higher melting point, higher boiling point. Okay, higher melting point, higher boiling point. So obviously, simple molecular structure is not gonna correct answer because simple molecular has low melting and boiling point. Okay. They are malleable. Obviously, giant covalent are not malleable. Giant ionic lattices are not malleable. Good electrical conductivity and thermal conductivity at RTP. So at RTP, ionic lattice are are solids. They cannot conduct electricity in solid state, which is why option B is incorrect. In solid state, giant covalent cannot conduct electricity is also incorrect. And therefore, C is going to be the correct answer because in giant metallic lattice, they have high melting and boiling point, they are malleable, they have good electrical conductivity, they have good thermal conductivity. Okay, so C is going to be the right answer. Question 27. Which statement explains why objects manufactured from aluminum corrode very slowly? Because aluminum has a thick oxide layer. Thick protective oxide layer. Thick oxide layer. So aluminum is above hydrogen in the reactivity series. That's true, but this statement has nothing to do with the given question, which is why A is incorrect. Aluminum is below hydrogen in the reactivity series. That's incorrect. The object becomes coated with a protective layer of aluminum nitride. It's aluminum oxide. So objects become coated with a protective layer. That's correct. With aluminum oxide, no, it's aluminum nitride, which is also incorrect, and therefore D is going to be the right answer because the protective layer is basically aluminum oxide, and that's true. The iron 3 oxide used in blast furnace contain impurity silicon dioxide, which reaction removes silicon dioxide. So silicon dioxide is an acidic oxide. It reacts with calcium oxide present in the blast furnace to give calcium silicate, which is a formula of CaSiO3. So I believe C is going to be the right answer. And that's the only way we can remove silicon 4 oxide from the blast furnace as an impurity. Okay. And how did we get calcium oxide? Calcium oxide are formed due to the thermal decomposition of calcium carbonate. So calcium oxide comes from calcium carbonate. Silicon dioxide is an impurity. They will react together, converting into an impurity of calcium silicate. Okay. Let's move on to question number 29. The domestic water supply is treated before it is supplied to houses. Three treatments are listed: sedimentation and filtration. So sedimentation and filtration removes solids. Sedimentation and filtration kill microbes, not at all. Removes unpleasant taste and odor that carbon or charcoal usually do during the procedure. Treatment of chlorine kill microbes because chlorine is used to remove germs and bacteria, so kill microbes. Treatment with carbon removes unpleasant taste and odor, so that must be the B option. Okay. Have you finished? 27, 28. Oh my goodness. 30. Nitrates and ammonium salts are used as a fertilizers. Which fertilizer contain the greatest mass of nitrogen in 50 kilogram? Uh, the greatest mass of nitrogen will give you the greatest mass in 50 kg. So we need to find out. Oh my goodness. Okay. Percentage by mass of nitrogen. So nitrogen in this case has only one atom, so it's 14 into 1 divided by the MR of nitrogen, MR of ammonium chloride. Let's calculate 35.5 plus 17. It's going to be 52.5. So 14 divided by answer into 100, it's going to be 26.6%. Now in this case, percentage of nitrogen. So we have the AR of nitrogen is 14. We have two atoms in the formula. So into 2 divided by the MR of ammonium nitrate. So 16 times 3 plus 28 plus 4. It's 80 into 100. So technically 28 divided by answer into 100 is going to be 35%. Okay. Let's talk about ammonia percentage by mass of nitrogen and ammonium sulfate. In ammonium sulfate, we have nitrogen atom which has an AR of 14. We have two atoms of nitrogen in the formula into 2 divided by the MR. 16 times 4 plus 32 plus 34 is going to be 130 into 100. So 28 divided by this into 100. It's basically 21.5%. KNO3. It has only one nitrogen. So percentage by mass of nitrogen is going to be 14 times 1 divided by the MR of KNO3. 16 times 3 plus 14 plus 39, 101 into 100. So 14 divided by 200. It's going to be 13.86. So technically, option B is going to be the right answer because this option contains greatest mass of nitrogen by percentage, and so it will give you more amount in 50 kilogram of the compound. Okay, so B is going to be the right answer. Which strategy reduces methane emission? मीथेन हमेशा लाइव स्टॉक फार्मिंग के थ्रू आती है, तो अगर मैं लाइव स्टॉक फार्मिंग को कम करूंगा तो मीथेन का एमिशन भी कम होगा, which is why C is going to be the right answer, and that's a fact. Question number 32. Compound P is an alcohol with the formula C4H10O. How many structural isomers are there of compound P? We have done this in class. मैंने बहुत डिटेल से करवाया था, and look at this information कि ये आपके एग्जाम में आई हुई है. Okay, so इसका मतलब आपको चीजें जो है वो काफी डिटेल से पढ़नी होती है. ठीक है, relevant detail. All right, not an irrelevant detail. This is my first structure of C4H10O. This is the first one. This is the second one. CH3, CH, CH3, CH2OH. This is the third one. We have done this in class, okay? CH3, C, CH3, CH3OH. Okay. So these are the three. By the way, both of them are chain isomers of each other. By the way, both of them are chain isomers of each other. Let's talk about the positional isomer from this. So it's CH3, CHOH, CH2, CH3. So both of them are positional isomers of each other. This one is chain isomer with each other, and this one is positional isomers of each other. This one is positional isomers of chain isomers of each other. Okay. So there are total 4 isomers exist in this, and therefore C is going to be the right answer. ये भी तो हो सकता है कि मैं CH3 को उठा के यहाँ शिफ्ट करूं और हाइड्रोजन को यहाँ लेकर चले जाऊं, तो ऑब्वियसली यही वाला स्ट्रक्चर बनेगा फिर. सो इट डजंट मेक एनी डिफरेंस. ऑलराइट, मतलब इससे ज्यादा नहीं बन सकते अब. सो आइसोमेरिज्म मैंने बहुत डिटेल से करवाया. एल्केन, एल्कीन, एल्कोहल, वो बहुत अच्छे तरीके से आपने प्रिपेयर करना है, सो दैट you should know how to apply the concept in such questions. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Question number 3. Alkane undergoes substitution reaction with chlorine. Which row shows 2 correct statements about the reaction between alkane and chlorine? The reaction requires ultraviolet light. That's true, because sunlight is required for the reaction, not the thermal energy. That indicates option A and B incorrect. So competition exists between C and D. A carbon atom is replaced by a chlorine atom. That's incorrect, because methane is CH4. It is reacting with chlorine. So this H is substituted with this chlorine, and so you will get HCl, and it's going to be CH3 Cl. So technically this hydrogen is substituted with this chlorine atom. So that's the correct option. Okay, and therefore D is going to be the right answer. A molecule of compound C4H6 is shown, and I've told you in the class, जरूरी नहीं होता कि alkene contain only one double bond. It can be more than one double bond. Like in this case, it is an alkene and it has more than one double bond. Okay, this molecule undergoes 2 separate addition reactions. It undergoes addition reaction with excess bromine and an addition reaction with the steam. When an alkene reacts with the steam, always turns into an alcohol. So whenever any alkene from the whole planet react with the steam, then always an alcohol is formed. So when this compound reacts with the steam, dash is formed, alcohol is formed. So option B and option D, absolutely incorrect. Now competition exists between A and C. Now when I will treat it with bromine, obviously I'll get hold on. We have double bond between these 2 carbon, which means when we react, when bromine is involved in the reaction, addition reaction takes place on these 2 double bonded carbon atoms. Another addition reaction takes place between these 2 carbon atoms, and that is going to be the product when these 2 reactants react together. How many bromine atoms we have added all together? 4. That indicates we need 2 molecules of bromine. So 1 molecule of C4H6 react with 2 molecules of bromine. 2 molecules. So right answer is going to be C. Okay. Which statement about members of the homologous series of alcohol is correct? An alcohol with two carbon atoms. Oh my goodness, that's tricky. An alcohol with two carbon atoms in each molecule is called methanol. That's incorrect, because whenever we have an alcohol of two carbon atom, it's going to be an ethanol, not methanol. So option A is incorrect. Butanol can be combusted to give carbon dioxide and water only. That's true. Whenever any compound or any alcohol is burned in the presence of oxygen, carbon dioxide and water are the only product. By the way, butanol is C4H10O. All right. It undergoes combustion with oxygen, converting into carbon dioxide and water. It becomes 8. It becomes 13 upon 2. Oh, not 13 upon 2. Yeah, it has to be 6 here, because 6 times 2, 12, 12 plus 1, 13 oxygen. We have 13 oxygen here. So that's true. Let's talk about, so potential answer is going to be B. Let's talk about option C. Ethanol is the only alcohol that can oxidize to carboxylic acid. No, not the only alcohol. Uh, Propanol can oxidize into carboxylic acid. Butanol can oxidize into carboxylic acid. So that's not the only alcohol. Other alcohols can oxidize also into carboxylic acids. Propanol can be made. My goodness, I'm running out of space. Let's do this here. When ethene and steam undergoes addition reaction in the presence of catalyst, you will get ethanol. Examiner is saying propanol can be made. So that's an incorrect scenario, incorrect statement, which is why for sure B is the correct answer. Okay. Whenever ethene and steam react together in the presence of catalyst via addition reaction, and ethanol is formed. And that's what we have done in the class, right? So propanol cannot be made when these two reagents are reacting together. 36. Oh my goodness. Okay. That's a very strange structure. And this structure is not given in the syllabus. But examiner is looking for the answer. That means you need to apply the concept, and concept is really, really important for organic chemistry. The diagram shows the structure of the compound called ethanoic anhydride. Okay. 1 mole of ethanoic anhydride reacts with water to form 2 moles of carboxylic acid only. Okay. This is the first part of the question. So first of all, let me remind you one thing which we have done in the class. This CO will get OH of water, and this oxygen will get hydrogen of water. Okay. That indicates I'm going to break this bond, and technically, it is one ester, it is another ester of functional group. So technically in this molecule we have two ester functional groups. So this is called hydrolysis of ester. And in hydrolysis of ester, the CO will get OH of water, will turn to CWH, and the oxygen will get hydrogen of water, will turn to OH. Now let me make the structure from this. This is CH3. CO, and this is OH of water. Look guys, this is ethanoic acid. Plus, this is the remaining part, okay? I have to write this remaining part. This is CH3. This is CO. This is O. And this is H. And again, guys, this is also ethanoic acid. So both are ethanoic acid, which is why examiner is saying 2 moles of carboxylic acid only. 2 moles of ethanoic acid only. Okay. So how many water molecules are involved in this reaction? Only one water molecule are involved in the reaction, because when H and OH combine together to give 1 mole of water, So number of moles of water is only 1. Oh my goodness, that's a lot of thought process behind this. Anyway, this carboxylic acid reacts with ethanol to form an ester. Now carboxylic acid is ethanoic, and it is reacting with ethanol. Ethanol contain 2 carbon atoms and OH group, right? We know carboxylic acid gives OH and alcohol gives H. They will combine together to give an ester. When we write the structure of ester, first we write the acid part, and then we need to write the alcohol part, structure of alcohol part, which is going to be OCH2 and then CH3. Okay, now let's check which structure is given in the option. This is ethyl, it's here, it's not here, it's not here. This is not ethyl, this is only 1 carbon atom. We have 2 carbon atom here. Okay, so this is 2 carbon atom, and we have this whole group, ethanoate, and we have this whole group of ethanoate. So I believe A is going to be the right answer. Okay. That's a very, very classic question. It's my favorite. Okay. Question number 37. 4 samples were analyzed using paper chromatography. Examiner is saying 4 samples. P, Q, and R are pure substances. So pure substances shows only one spot. M is a mixture of different substances. Since it is a mixture, it shows multiple spots. Okay. Which substances does mixture M contain? C. This Q is line up horizontally with M, which means M contain this Q. This P is also line up with M horizontally, which means P also contain in M. So P and Q line up horizontally with M. So M contain both P and Q. C. This R is not line up with M, which means R is not there. But the issue is we have another spot here. That means M contain another substance. This M contain Q, this M contain P, but this spot indicates that another substance is also present in M. So on the basis of that, I believe B is going to be the right answer. Okay. And look, this is the first spot, this is the second spot, this is the third spot. The examiner is saying 4 samples. Oh, 4 samples. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So these are the 4 samples. M, P, Q, and R. So that's the correct sort of explanation. That's another substance present in M. Okay. Question 38. A student is making sample of aqueous copper 2 sulfate. The student adds excess of copper 2 oxide powder to warm sulfuric acid and stir the mixture. Which apparatus is used to separate aqueous copper 2 sulfate from excess copper 2 oxide? First thing, this medium is aqueous, which means it is a soluble part. Or it could be soluble salt, and this soluble salt will serve as a filtrate. And you know what? Copper 2 oxide is insoluble in water, and so it will serve as a residue. So to separate residue from filtrate, I'm going to go for filtration. And for filtration, we can use two things: filter funnel and filter paper. Right answer is going to be C. How can a pure sample of barium sulfate be obtained from barium carbonate? Remember, barium carbonate is insoluble in water. Which means dissolves in water is incorrect. Dissolves in water is also incorrect, which is why option C and D is incorrect. But one thing for sure, that barium carbonate soluble in acid, so dissolves it in dilute hydrochloric acid. Both statements are correct. So let me make the equation first. In the first step, barium carbonate is dissolved in hydrochloric acid, converting into barium chloride, water, and carbon dioxide. Okay. Then we need to add dilute sulfuric acid. That's true. So in the second statement, barium chloride is soluble in water. It will react with sulfuric acid. And as a result, you will get barium sulfate and HCl. Now this barium sulfate is insoluble in water. So you need to filter. So that's also correct. And then you need to wash so that we can remove the trace amount of both sulfuric acid and barium chloride. We cannot crystallize directly without washing, and therefore option A is incorrect, and so B is going to be the right answer. Okay. Last question, that is 40. Oh, a sample of white powder X is dissolved in water. If white powder is soluble in water, then it means this X is not doesn't contain transition element. Okay. If it is white powder, not a transition element. Dissolved in water, that means calcium sulfate is incorrect because calcium sulfate is insoluble in water. Okay. Tests are done on separate portion of the solution and the observation are shown in the table. When we add aqueous sodium hydroxide at a drop at a time until it is in excess, white precipitates forms soluble in excess, giving a colorless solution. So we have two different options, calcium and aluminum. So this could be aluminum ion, and calcium is insoluble in water. It doesn't form a colorless solution, which is why this statement is also incorrect. When add dilute nitric acid followed by silver nitrate, white precipitates is formed. That indicates the presence of chloride ion. Last, when we add barium nitrate, the solution remains colorless. That indicates sulfate absent. If sulfate ion is absent, which means this option is incorrect. And therefore, A is going to be the right answer, okay? That's the end of this paper, guys. Thank you very much.